So it was the spring of 2003, and I was 8 months into a job in Washington, D.C., and I was realizing already that it just wasn't a fit. And so I started thinking about what would keep me in a job where I wasn't happy, and I realized that it really came down, for me, to fear. The fear of not having any money. And at its root, that fear was really about not having any food or shelter or being able to meet my own basic needs. Now, meanwhile, I had a friend named Jeff, and he had given away everything he owned, and he had been wandering around America for about a year or so already without any money. And I had had the opportunity to join him on a few occasions for a week or two here or there, and I had found it really enlightening. And so as I was in DC thinking about what am I going to do about this job, I realized I had what felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to dive into my fear of not having any money with Jeff as my guide. And so I did. Now, it's important to acknowledge that I am white, well-educated, and fairly employable. Fairly. I had lived pretty simply since college. I did not have any dependents or debt. I did not have to care for my parents or support them financially. It was being born into privilege that really enabled me to take the time to explore living differently. And I'm so grateful that I both had and took that opportunity. So I quit my job, and I packed a small backpack. It's right here, with some of this stuff in it. I had a change of clothes, maybe some layers. I had a journal, a spoon, a cup, a sleeping bag. I had some toiletries and one of those cardboard disposable cameras with 24 pictures on it that I took with me. I also had my flip phone and my ID card, my debit card, my credit card, and my catastrophic insurance cards sealed in a bag I stored them, hid them in the bottom of my backpack just in case. Now, Jeff has none of this portable safety net and still doesn't. We left with $5 between us so I could ease into it. Yes, $5. So we decided to walk along back roads and through small towns and just head to the north. And we left on May 18th from my mother's house in Pennsylvania. And I don't like this photo, but if I look like I was tired and hadn't slept all night and was terrified, it's because I was. So we spent hours walking that day. We spent the $5 on some mac and cheese at a fast food restaurant that night. And we slept that night in the back of an unrented rental truck in a rental lot. And it was freezing. It was 30 degrees that night. So I am not going to lie. The first week or so on the road was rough. It was rough on my body, getting used to the pack and walking in sandals, sleeping on rock-hard surfaces. The rain, it rained consistently. It was super cold. It was pretty rough. But it was also really rough on my mind as I began to understand what I had undertaken with this walk. We walked most days. We took breaks. We slept under trees if the weather was accommodating. We were in no rush. We ate food that we found or was given to us. We slept under bushes or playground equipment or tucked ourselves behind buildings. We had no destination in mind. Now, the people we met along the way struggled with this because they felt like you need to have a goal, some mileage goal or some kind of destination in mind. But we had none of that. That was not what the walk was about. For us, walking was merely the creative form we chose to explore living differently for a while. We had one rule, which was never ask for anything other than directions. Now, we changed the rule on day 2. because it was raining all the time, okay? And so if we saw a porch or an overhang behind a church, we decided we just might ask if we could sleep under it. Sometimes they said yes, sometimes they said no, and sometimes they invited us to sleep inside. The walk was confronting and difficult at times, but it opened my mind in ways I didn't think were possible. There were so many glimmers of hope along the way, Corsu in action, that they enabled me to keep walking until the next one. So today I'm going to share with you a few lessons from the road. Donuts and junk food can fuel you for a time. Okay? What I found was that the fear of hunger grips you way before actual hunger arrives. I had to keep asking myself, is my stomach really hungry or is my mind just afraid? I spent a lot of time those first couple days on the road thinking about food. Now, I just want to be clear about something. This was not a temporary foray into poverty. It was an inquiry into living differently. We had not been forced on this path by systems or circumstances that were stacked against us. We had chosen it, and there's a big difference. Prior to walking, I was a kale, chickpea, and tofu kind of eater. But on the road, there was no luxury of choice, and we ate a lot of donuts at the beginning. There was a chain of donut stores that always had a bag of perfectly good donuts in their dumpsters, and we dumpster dived at first. But when we realized that it was becoming a bit of a competitive sport between us, we had a new rule that was no dumpster diving unless we were truly, truly hungry in that moment. Sometimes people gave us money. We picked up pennies and coins on the side of the road. You couldn't buy much for 25 cents, but you could buy a packet of ramen noodles, you could buy a little Debbie cake, you might be able to buy some stale bread from a bakery, and we ate a lot of all of that. And I learned that low nutrition food can also be fuel. There is an art to receiving. On the second day of the walk, I was waiting for Jeff outside of a gas station, and this woman came up to me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm walking, and I'm trying to understand the difference between what I want and what I really need." And her eyes lit up when I told her that I had quit my job 2 weeks earlier because I wasn't happy. And she told me that she had just been laid off after 28 years working at a food processing plant. And she had been planning to retire the next year, but now she didn't know if she could. A few minutes later, Jeff and I are walking down this busy road, and this car pulls over, and the window comes down, and it's the woman. And she's handing me $5. And I didn't want to take her money, but I could see in her eyes her determination to give. And that woman's generosity, which was my first experience of Corsu in human form, taught me a lot about receiving with humility and grace. She was the first of a number of beautiful strangers who found something for themselves in our walk. Time and again, we encountered unexpected gifts and open doors and just incredible kindness from people as we walked with nothing and were open to anything. There are a lot of lonely people out there. We are a nation of drivers. We seal ourselves inside our cars and we rush from place to place, consumed with our own busyness. And Jeff and I were not immune to this. And now you can actually, we isolate ourselves in even more ways now with earbuds and portable screens. And Jeff and I experienced this on the road. I found that when we had $1 or $2 in our pocket, we would just wake up and start walking. But if we had nothing, we might take time to explore a town or sit on a park bench and just be open to whomever and whatever may come our way. Even just that temporary sense of security with that $1 in our pocket could cut us off from other people. We found that walkers in suburban America are a complete anomaly, and that you're also accessible. When you're walking with a backpack that's bigger than a book bag, you stand out. And you also walk slowly enough that lonely people can see you outside their window, size you up as you're walking by, and maybe come out and talk to you. We had so many people call out to us, "Hey, what are you doing?" And that sometimes gruff or curious question really evolved into these incredibly rich conversations about values and experiences. We had plenty of time, and we were interested in their stories, and I found that our living without the trappings of a traditional life for a while became a form of Corsu for others. Okay. Sorry. This is what I'm looking for. So on day 5, I wrote in my journal, this one right here. On day 5, I wrote in my journal, "The past 5 days have confronted the hell out of me." This was day 5. I've been scared, tired, cold, in pain, miserable at times, and yet the most beautiful opportunities to give and receive have constantly arisen. Each opportunity offers me the chance to lose my own significance and simply be present to fellow human beings with their own needs for recognition, acceptance, and love. So life cycles through scarcity and abundance. Things are never in perfect balance for long. So we hadn't eaten for a while, and we walked into this town in western Massachusetts and found these people cleaning up after some big church celebration. And this volunteer said, "We've got 400 leftover sandwiches, and you can have them all." Okay, great. But we couldn't eat them all, and we couldn't carry them with us, so we just had to eat till we were full, take a couple for the road, and just let it go. Early in the walk, after a few sparse days of walking, an elderly couple invited us in for the night. They fed us dinner and breakfast, they gave us a short ride, and they handed us some money as we got out of the car, and as they drove away, I realized it was $20. Like a fortune, right? And I started thinking immediately about how, oh my goodness, we can have ramen noodles day after day and eat for weeks. And Jeff had a very different idea about what to do with that money. He just wanted to have a great meal and let it go. Oh, the arguments that arose from that couple's kind gift. But I realized, that my grasping for a sense of security in the midst of this experience was just not the point. So we had a great meal at a diner, and we kept on walking. Okay, here we go. At one point, we had $2.14 in our pocket, and it had been a long day of walking, and we were exhausted, and I went into a grocery store trying to buy something nutritious that would last us for a while. And I immediately realized I couldn't buy anything in the produce section, or enough of anything in the produce section that would fill us up. And I thought about buying a box of potato flakes or maybe a jar of peanut butter, and these did not feel like good choices. So I left the grocery store and proceeded to have a meltdown in the parking lot because I felt like it was just too much pressure and not enough workable choices, and I was stuck and afraid and mad, and I just didn't like anything that this walk was turning out to be. Okay, so the next morning we went back into the grocery store and we bought a half-gallon of date-challenged milk and a bashed-up, discounted box of sugared cereal, and we ate it all in one sitting and kept walking. With surrender comes freedom. Okay, my notes are all messed up, sorry. Here we go. No, it's here. Early on, it was very hard for me to trust that our needs would be met. But after walking out there for a month, I realized that I came to truly believe that the universe would provide for us. So when we got to New Hampshire, we had a new rule for ourselves, which was every night, we would spend or give away every cent that we had, so we would wake up every morning with nothing. And as a result, those mornings in New Hampshire started with this sense of wonder and freedom and just adventure. We had no idea when or how our next meal would arrive, but we just knew, we had faith and we trusted that it just would. And it did. Now, sometimes the timing was off in my mind, but it did arrive. We found our way to the seacoast, and I actually spent the night. This was our little spot that is right behind the Methodist Church on Government Street. And there was no one there that day to ask if we could just sleep on their porch. So if anyone is a member of that church, I wish to extend belated thanks. In Maine, our astonishment at the generosity of people continued. There was the wonderful woman in Waldoboro who we met at the library, and she said, "Where are you staying tonight?" And we hadn't picked a spot yet. So she said, "You know what? I'm spending the night at my boyfriend's. You can stay at my house." She took us to her beautiful home, showed us around, and left us alone to enjoy it. The very next day, we met a woman who was tending the garden across the street from Moody's Diner on Route 1. She invited us home for lunch, where we met her husband and her teenage kids. They thought it would be a great idea if we spent the night at their camp on a lake. So they drove us out there, and we had this incredible, peaceful night in this beautiful, cozy cabin. The next day, they excitedly knocked on our door and delivered a basket of freshly baked, still warm muffins, and they brought an invitation for us to join them sailing in the morning. Incredible, right? Now, would everyone have had this experience out there on the road? Sadly, no. The people we met, we presented ourselves in a certain way, and the people we met, they saw us through their own conscious and unconscious biases, and those who chose to assisted us on our way. And everyone who did negated what the news tries to tell us, that people are fundamentally violent and angry and selfish and mean, and they restored my faith in humanity. But the waves of kindness and generosity that flowed so often to Jeff and to me left in their wake the urgent question of how can we channel this untapped sea of care and goodness that is out there in the world? How can we channel it to the people who need it the most? And that is a question that still desperately needs an answer. And if I'm making this sound like it was a walk in the park, please know that it wasn't. I just don't have time to tell you about all the times we were hungry or we were injured or we were just, not great. And, when I wasn't in a state of amazement and wonder, I was often uncomfortable and discouraged. 2 weeks into the walk, I wrote in my journal, "This hand-to-mouth stuff may be somewhat contrived, but it's really confronting and scary. I can see how people go to whatever lengths possible not to be in this situation. It's hard not to feel bad about oneself when you don't have any money at all." Every ending is a new beginning. So in the middle of July, we landed in a small town in mid-coast Maine called Belfast. At that point, we'd walked 500 miles and over the past 8.5 weeks. And we walked into town and we met this woman who introduced us to a reporter for the local paper. So we spent some time talking to her. Later in the day, we met this guy, and he started talking to us, and he said, "Hey, you can have the keys to my church and stay here as long as you like." So we decided that we would stay until the story came out in the paper. When we opened the paper in the library, When we opened the paper in the library, we were completely surprised to see this big page 3 story in the local paper that everybody reads. And the reporter had done a really nice job of speaking about our intention and what we had been learning along the way. So 2 things happened. First, everybody could now recognize us. And so we often heard, "Hey, you're the Walkers." Yes, we are. But the other thing was people who read the article sought us out. And they invited us for meals. They wanted to talk to us and learn what we'd learned. And we had many invitations to come and stay for a while. And so we did. So after about a month in Belfast, Jeff left and kept walking. But I decided to stay because that community had come to feel more like home to me than any place I'd ever lived before. And how my life unfolded from there is a different story, but I'll just say that my time spent walking and my time living in Belfast are beautiful chapters of my life that I will always cherish. So I now walk a different road. I have a wonderful husband, a daughter, a dog, a cat. We have a house and a Christmas tree farm. But the memories of the walk remain, and for the past year, they kept coming into my head. 2025 was a tough year for so many of us as we watched our country evolve in some deeply concerning ways, and we still do. And I kept thinking back to the people that we met when we were on the road. What we encountered was that human beings are fundamentally kind and caring. As a species, we are hardwired to want to be in community and to help each other. And while our country feels more divided now because we judge and are judged for our beliefs and how we vote, I can't help but trust that the deep-rooted urge we have to connect and care for each other remains at our core. We see it clearly in times of extreme disaster when neighbors and strangers help each other without hesitation. So as we enter into this new, exciting, and sometimes daunting year, I encourage you to go towards your fears and to see other people first through a lens of our common humanity. I was very fortunate to be able to walk, and while we can't all do that, we can take some simple steps just to open ourselves to other people and to new possibilities for a better future. While seeking our own glimmers of hope, we can always be a glimmer for somebody else. So take time to sit on a park bench. Do not look at your phone. And just be open to the unexpected, which may or may not arrive. Smile at a stranger. Compliment somebody you don't know. Trust your gut and default to kindness and generosity. Each of these simple actions are steps forward along a hopeful road that I believe might just bring our communities and our country back together, one conversation at a time. Thank you.